Srinivas Narayanan, IIT Madras, absolutely top of his class. Gold. I mean, he's been acing all through. Finished PhD in the US from the top university. Went in Meta for 15 years. He was heading all AI research there. Facebook Places. He's built Facebook Places from scratch. He's actually built multiple products at Facebook, which are already using hundreds of millions of users. And he's VP, Vice President at for all applied sciences. So ChatGPT and developer program platforms are under him at OpenAI. He reports to Meera Murati, the CTO, and then of course Sam Altman himself. So we're very, very excited. Let us. Do you have Srinivas online, or we need a minute? Kshitij? Yeah. Can you move the chairs out? Both of them. This is fine. This is fine. You able to see? Okay. Please give us 30 seconds because he was unfortunately not able to make it, but he's joining online right from the Valley, Silicon Valley in Bay Area. So just give us 30 seconds. We are doing an online, it's a hybrid, so technology. Give us a couple of minutes and we'll be right with you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Srinivas. Thank you so much for joining. Can you hear us? Can you see us? I don't know if you can hear us. Right?
Okay, I can't hear anybody in the room, so
yes, I can hear you. Right now, there's no audio which has been coming through, so I can hear your voice loud and clear. We are good.
Okay, just give me a cue for when I can start.
Can you hear us?
You want to go full screen?
I can. Okay, we do not hear Aura 2 feed actually.
Oh, okay. I want full screen. Can you go full screen, please? What is the mic? The mic is on.
So, Srinivas, are you going with the screen share? Are you the first person who's gonna talk, or
Yes.
how it's gonna work?
He's the first person to talk.
Yeah, I think so. I see somebody with the mic on the stage, right? So I think he introduced me, but I couldn't hear the whole thing.
Okay.
So what
Let's
I would
do one thing.
Maybe
Let's
I
do one
can
thing.
just
I'm stopping the screen share right now, and it's not shared yet. So what will happen is I'll hide myself, and once we go live, and once you start hearing the things, okay,
So Swadeep is calling me right now. I'm going to put him on speaker, okay?
Yes, please.
Hi, Srinivas.
Hi, Swadeep.
Hi, you're good to go. We can hear you loud and clear.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay.
Please go full screen mode.
Sounds good.
All good to go. All good to go. We just introduced you. We're all excited waiting to.
Okay, great.
Waiting to listen to you.
Okay, sounds good. Let me start and
Thank you. Bye.
yeah, bye.
Okay, I'm going to go live right now, sir.
Sounds good. Let me just share my screen.
Yeah, but we are not able to hear Aura 2.
Okay, can I go?
1 minute.
Okay, I think can I go now, right? Okay. Hey everyone, sorry for all the technical difficulties. There's always a saying that we were going to solve AI before we solve video conferencing, and that continues to be true in every time we do one of these things. Anyway, lovely to meet you all. I think you can hear me now. So let me talk a little bit about the state of AI, and I'm obviously going to focus a lot on language models. And let's dive right in. So first of all, why is it a big deal, right? So we've been working in AI for a long time. The field has been around for almost 50, 70 years. And a lot of the progress these days has obviously been built on research and fantastic progress that people have made over the years. But it still is a very big moment, I think, right now for a few reasons, right? Which is historically, AI has been built in very bespoke ways. We always used to take one task and build AI models to solve a very specific problem, whether it's recognizing objects and images, or whether it is doing, language understanding for a very specific task like sentiment prediction, for example, right? But the current wave of AI is really much more general. The models have very widespread use. They can do lots of different things, and they're able to adapt to new contexts and to new problems much more easily than ever before. So we have this idea of what we sometimes talk about as zero shot or in context learning, where the model, even when it hasn't entirely seen the same problem before, it is able to reason on the fly. It is able to generate things, not just do predictive things, right? And that's been really interesting. We can generate images, we can generate fluent essays, and it's able to reason things. For the first time, we're seeing where AI is able to think through problems. Maybe it's preliminary, it's not quite as advanced as what we would all hope for, but you see the signs of it able to reason through things, which is really amazing. And all of this has also led to a completely new paradigm in how we approach the interface to computing, right? We are now able to converse with these systems in much more natural ways, like you would talk to other people. And that really changes the way people interact with computing and with software and with products in general. The last thing I'll touch upon a little bit is this notion of scaling laws. I will actually pause there for a second. I will talk about it in a slide in a few slides. So here's the performance of GPT-4 on a variety of benchmarks. And what you can see is first how much better it is on various benchmarks compared to the previous model. But also, many of these benchmarks are things like exams that people take, right? And you can see that these models are now performing close enough to humans in many, many, many tasks, right? And that has really led to an incredible amount of progress in what we are using these models for. And the fact that now they're operating close to a human level is actually been a fantastic progress for the field. I talked about scaling laws earlier, so this is what I mean. What we are seeing is that as we train larger and larger models, the performance of these models tend to getting better, and we don't necessarily know if there is an end in sight. So there's a sense of anticipation that the next big model is going to unlock completely new capabilities. And sometimes we call these as emergent properties. So, for example, when you looked at GPT 3.5 compared to GPT-4, GPT-4 was a pretty big step up in terms of capabilities. And it was also a much larger model, obviously, right? But it unlocked completely new things. Like, for example, in terms of being able to reason through standardized tests, it does much better than 3.5, right? And that's not something we necessarily expected. Now there is a sense of anticipation for when the next big model comes, what new capabilities is it going to have, and what more things are we going to be able to automate and do using AI. And that sense of anticipation is actually also one of the reasons why I think we're in this very exciting time. Just to give you a very quick overview of how these systems work, these models are trained on a large amount of unlabeled text data, usually public data that we have pulled from the internet, Wikipedia, and things of that nature. And there is a phase that we call pre-training, where we train these models basically to just predict the next word in a sentence, right? Or we call it the next token. And that's the first phase of the training. And this phase of training takes a fair amount of compute and it takes a long time. And it's done on a lot of unlabeled data. And then we do a second phase, which we call fine tuning, which is done on a much smaller amount of labeled data. And here, the goal of the training is to really get the language model to be able to be more aligned with what we want from this as humans, right? So we also call this the alignment step, where we are training the model to basically behave in ways that we would like them to behave in response to certain questions. So think of the first phase as building more general knowledge of the world, and the second phase is sort of like guiding the model to behaviors that we would like. Now, why does this work at all, right? It's kind of insane to think that just by training to predict the next word in a sentence or the next token, that these models are behaving these really, really interesting ways. Now, the scientific answer is that we don't entirely know this yet, right? I think this is still a research field. Explainability and how these models work is still something we're trying to understand. But at a very intuitive level, what is happening is this, right? If you want to really, really be good at prediction, you have to have some understanding of the underlying data and the underlying mechanics, right? So if I pose you a problem and say, tell me what I'm going to say, blah, right? You're going to have a reasonable understanding of me, of the world, and like the distribution of words in a language in order to make a very reasonable estimate of what kinds of words I might say next, right? And you're built all of that over time. We as humans have built all of that over time by just growing up, by interacting with other people, by interacting with the world. And we've had some ways in which our brains and our genetics have worked to help us build that. I think at some intuitive level, something's, I wouldn't say necessarily similar, but some compression and some learning is happening in these AI models where by learning to predict, they are forming some representation of the underlying data, and they are learning to reason through things to be able to react better to new contexts and to new situations, which is one of the most exciting things that's happening, which is the fact that they can sort of innately build some sort of reasoning capability to be able to react to new situations is pretty amazing. So that's in a nutshell, sort of like a sense of why it's exciting, how these language models are trained, and why they behave, I think, the way they behave. Although we don't deeply understand it, I think we're still doing a lot of research. So I'll shift gears a little bit to tell you a little about products that we are building using these language models, right? And at us at OpenAI, we fundamentally have two main products. One is ChatGPT, which is a consumer product that you can go to and interact with it in a conversational way. And then we also have developer APIs that we have enabled for lots of developers all over the world to build interesting applications on the go. So just to give you a very quick sense, ChatGPT, we have about 100 million weekly active users. And that's pretty interesting for a product that is just barely a year old, right? We launched ChatGPT just close to 1 year ago. And when we launched, honestly, OpenAI didn't really expect this to take off this well. Like, we thought it would be a research preview. Maybe people will play with this. We weren't really prepared for the volume of users and the types of things that people have been using this for. And we're obviously very excited and also humbled by that. The use cases include people are using it as writing assistants. Lots of people use it for coding. It's fantastic for that, for data analysis. Lots of really research and knowledge work. You want to analyze something. It's really good as a creative and an assistive tool. It's obviously really good at summarization as well. So you can feed it long documents. It will summarize things for you. And lots of other use cases. People ask it to generate jokes, people ask it to generate poems, and it's just like there's just amazing amount of use cases here. That's broadly ChatGPT. I will also talk about some of our newer stuff that we have built around how you can customize ChatGPT for very specific purposes. But just to give you a sense of the impact it's having on various things that people are doing, this is a study that I have here, and where people analyzed what is the impact on productivity for people, right? And here people are using this as a writing assistant to complete their task. And the people who use this basically took 40% less time to complete their task, and the quality of their output was 18% better, right? And such study was done a few months ago. And this is just one example of how much impact these tools are having. And there's also been a lot more studies to say that it's actually having more impact on people who might be less skilled. And that's actually a really positive thing in some ways, because this tool can now be a great equalizer for people too, right? People who have varying degrees of skills can actually use AI as an assistive tool to be able to do our jobs better. So let me talk a little bit about our developer platform. So that was ChatGPT at a very high level. So our developer platform, essentially we provide APIs for developers to build really interesting applications. We've had an amazing amount of interest from the developer community. Over 2 million developers are building on top of our platform, including many, many Fortune 500 companies. We have a basic chat completions API, which is basically how you would interact on ChatGPT, but you can have that in an API form where you send the human input and we would produce the machine output. There's also a more sophisticated assistance API, which we will talk about in a second. And now we also have ability for, if you have custom data sets that you might have unique assets in your own business or your company, and you want our AI to be able to understand that better, you can bring that and you can fine tune our models to be able to work better for your own use cases. I'll start talking a little bit about how these models are being used beyond just in the text domain, right? Text is obviously important. I think it's a great conversational tool, but life is more than just text, right? So there's lots of really interesting stuff we have done with visual input and visual output, audio input and audio output. And people are also, outside of OpenAI, are also trying these in other domains, right? People want to use this for generating 3D assets, for example. You can imagine that people who build games would be really interested in that. 3D asset creation is a very powerful thing. You can apply this in the field of biology to understand protein structures, and people are using similar techniques to do that. So there's just a wide variety of uses of language models and the techniques behind language models in a variety of domains. I would just want to give you a few examples of some of these multimodal things that we have. This is an example of DALL-E 3, which is an image generation tool. And Coca-Cola used this to create a Diwali campaign, right? And this is the output that they've done for this campaign, and it's pretty amazing, right? Just to be able to have something really interesting like that. And I've used this for many things. I created prompts that says, I want to have and visual of Diwali being celebrated in San Francisco, where I live, and it created this beautiful picture of the Golden Gate Bridge with Diwali lights on it, right? It would be very hard for me to get things like that off the shelf, right? And so it's been a really amazing tool for my own personal use as well. Another thing we have done is what we call GPT-4 with vision. So you can now upload images, whether it's in our API or on ChatGPT, and you can really have a conversation about images, right? So here is an example that you see that it's generating a pretty detailed description of what it's seeing, right? This is, it's pasta, and it's giving you a detailed description of what the pasta is about, and it's pretty cool actually. And people are using this again for really lots of interesting use cases. Next is speech. I'm going to play a sound clip here, which shows you that people are having very natural conversations with these systems. And one of the most amazing things is just the quality of the speech that is generated is very natural sounding, and it's almost like talking to a person, right? And combined with the fact that our models can actually also understand to some extent what you're having and have reasonable outputs, we've sort of really unlocked this interesting new use case of just like talking to the system. And I've had a friend who told me that, just switched on ChatGPT in voice mode while he was driving for an hour, and he just had a conversation with it for an hour, and it was amazing, right? So lots of really new things in use cases that are emerging. Let me play this audio, and it's actually really interesting to see the humor in this, the voice in this, and let me hear it. I'll play this for you.
Hey, could you tell me the story of the three little pigs in the character of a total frat bro?
Absolutely, bro. Here we go. All right, so there's these three little pig bros, right? Living it up, enjoying the college life. First up, we've got Davey. Dude's all about taking the easy route. He thinks, why put in the effort? And just slaps together a crib out of straw. Honestly, kind of feels like those dudes who wear the same party shirt every weekend. You know the type. Then there's Mikey, the middle bro. A bit more into appearances, wants to one-up Davey a bit. So he goes and builds his pad out of sticks. Kind of like when you upgrade to those fancy beer pong cups instead of the cheap ones. Looks cooler, but is it sturdy? Not so much. Now, the third pig, Ricky, this dude's next level. Probably the frat president or something. He ain't messing around. Builds his spot out of bricks, man. Solid as that bro who never misses leg day.
Okay, I'm going to pause there. So anyway, you got the idea. I think it's just a really interesting example of taking a very classic, story and trying to do a very new riff on it. And it's all completely automated, and you just gave it a prompt, and out comes this amazing, funny audio, which is very human sounding, right? And so you can imagine this now being used in lots of different ways. You can use this as a storytelling tool. You can create new stories on the fly with very little work, and I think it's going to inspire a lot of creators to do amazing things. So I talked about ChatGPT. I talked about our APIs. I talked about some of the multimodal stuff that's happening. One of the other things that you're going to see these AI systems behave is we're now taking it out in the real world, and we want our AI systems to not just know about the data they were trained on, which is largely public internet data, but now they're starting to learn to operate in the real world with tasks and problems that people care about. So some of the ways in which you're doing this is you can customize your ChatGPT or an API to create what we call GPTs or assistants. And you can create you can give it custom instructions. You can ask it to learn completely new data. So you can upload a set of files and then say, I want you to understand what's in these files. That's the way it can learn external knowledge beyond what it was trained on. And you can also teach it to learn to call functions, which is actually a very amazing capability, which is to learn to get these AI models to learn to take actions in the real world, right? And it knows how to use tools like browsing. It can actually write code and execute code in a contained environment. It can generate images. And like I said, it can learn to call new functions on the fly. And essentially what you should expect is that the intelligence of these systems are going to continue to increase over time. And what that means is that these AI systems are going to be able to do increasingly more complex tasks over time, right? You saw on the tip of some of these examples, you saw how you can generate ad campaigns, you saw how you can generate stories. Let me show you one more example of this in action. This is Canva, which is a tool that people use for generating, nice posters and presentations and other visual assets. And here what we're seeing is we just asked this to generate a poster for the OpenAI's Dev Day. We had a reception in the evening. And all we said is hey, I want to just generate a poster, right? And Canva has APIs to do all of this, right? So, there's an API to generate poster style stuff. But using ChatGPT, we were able to create the text for these posters. And using Canva's APIs, these GPTs now understood how to call Canva's APIs to generate these posters, right? And so that's the new thing that you're seeing, which is the AI is not just learning to generate text, but the AI is learning to invoke functions, right? Which is another new capability that is pretty exciting. And here it generated a couple of options. You can click through it, you can finalize it and you can post it. So here's an example of something that now you can imagine that as it has learned to use new actions out in the world, lots of new emerging capabilities are going to be possible. I'll give you another example, which is you can create a custom GPT to act as a tech advisor, right? So maybe you have customer service manuals or product manuals. You can upload all of that, tell the GPT to say, just use this to provide advice to people, and people ask questions. It can actually pull the right segments from this and summarize the answers and give it back to them. So again, another cool examples of customizing GPTs for a very specific purpose. Okay, I'm going to next talk a little bit about some of the challenges with these AI models, right? So obviously they are great at lots of different things, but it's also challenging to build with them, and you have to keep certain things in mind. So there's a bunch of challenges. Maybe a higher level thing I would caveat is that fundamentally AI systems are very different to build with. They're non-deterministic in a way, right? They're not very conventional software systems that we are used to before, where you give an input, you expect a very clear output, which is very consistent and deterministic. That's what we're used to for a very long time. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your point of view, AI systems are not quite that, right? Like, they behave in interesting ways. They behave in different ways depending on what you give it. And in some ways, it's like interacting with another person. You're not quite sure what you're going to get back, right? And that is both interesting, but it's also challenging. Beyond the non-determinism, there's also a whole variety of safety challenges. These AI systems can obviously be abused in lots of different ways. They can generate misinformation. They can generate other types of harmful or unwanted content. You have to think about fairness and bias in these models. They're of course not perfect. They hallucinate. They make up stuff. Sometimes the reasoning is not correct, and so you have to be careful. And you can also, they can be jailbroken in some ways. Okay, I'm sorry. I think I'm just seeing a message from Swati. We have another 5 minutes. Yeah, I'll wrap up in 2 minutes or a minute, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions. And there's also really important questions around what economic impact is AI having on the world. And there's an entire new field around thinking about catastrophic risk with AI. Can AI systems persuade people in ways that we don't want them to, right? As we start interacting with AI more and more. Are there other sorts of unwanted risk, like whether can people use this in ways to generate biological weapons, or can there be existential risk with AI? And these are questions I would say we need to take seriously and we need to understand. But as these models get progressively better, these are things that we have to be very thoughtful about, and there's a lot of work to be done in understanding the impact of these systems. And of course, there's also plenty of opportunities. So this is going to be my last slide. I'll probably end with this. And what can you do with AI on the positive side, right? So there's lots of stuff you can do. I think one common pattern is to think of them as assistants or co-pilots for any favorite domain. I've seen this in legal, in finance, in coding, in writing, and all of that, right? And you can really use this to improve productivity of knowledge work across a whole number of domains. Some general suggestions you have: think about any unique data assets you have, and you can build IP around it and build models around it by fine-tuning. Think about a completely new natural interfaces to how you can build products in the future. Every time there is a new human-compute interface paradigm, it always creates new opportunities for people. And I think this is going to be another big one. And I don't think conversation is the only interface here, by the way. I think as these AI systems get more sophisticated, I think we're going to have more interesting, maybe more asynchronous interfaces with these systems as well. And these systems, like I said, are going to get increasingly intelligent with higher reasoning capabilities over time. And generally, my suggestion is just build and iterate. And try it out. I think it's an amazing time to build. This is the biggest technological revolution I think we're all going to see in our lives. And it's going to have an incredible impact on all of us. I'm not going to do too much here. You can use our developer APIs if you're interested. There's lots of stuff you can build. And we also have a no-code way to do this. This is the GPTs product that we launched. So you don't have to code. You can just go to the UI and build interesting GPTs for people to try out. So I will stop there and we'll take a few questions.